Okay, so I think I need to explain something that's not getting through to people. I think that most people view what's going on right now with COVID-19 and the escalation with China as a temporary inconvenience, as something that will be gotten over and we'll get to the other side of, and that somehow things will go back to normal. And this isn't the case. We're not going back. This is a one-way street. There isn't a platform, a baseline, or a benchmark to jump back to, because the entire fucking platform is what is moving here, not events. The events that are taking place are the public historical narrative to justify the changes in the movement of your baseline. What I'm describing is the actual physical property over time, over the delta of time, of synthesis in Hegelian dialectics. A lot of people seem to be having a really hard time understanding this. And I think the reason why is because when we're considering this stuff, these geopolitical events and events of social upheaval, we're viewing the way that we see the world individually as people, as individuals, in our individual agency as we interface with the world. We are misattributing the same perspective to something that's much larger. Now, in a certain way, in a certain respect, the changes that the world goes through are akin to an organism, but it wouldn't be like an organism as an individual. If it were closer to anything, it would be close to like a beehive or a bee colony, because in bees, or in, like in a social insect colony, you actually have two organisms of consideration. You have the individual insect, and then you have the colony itself. And both of these things have exclusive behavior and patterns. And it's not really different in humanity, depending on the way that they interface, depending on the way that things are built. The reason I say it depends is because human beings are designed to be highly adaptive. And so it's not necessary to have a life that is structured in the sense of like a bee colony. But that is the way that we are going. And that is the direction that we are headed before we can get on to something else. And it's not really avoidable at this point. Now, in the end, I don't believe that humanity is built to work this way, in a sense. Or at least not in the way that we're structured now as a centralized organism of humanity through economics. Economics are the central tie-in that makes all this possible, and economics are also the source of stimulation, which attributes to all this crazy horse hockey that everybody is having to decipher and try to understand. The reason that it's difficult to understand is because all of this shit that's going on, it's not logical, number one, but more than that, it's unnatural, and it's an expenditure. It's not even really a natural position of, it's not a natural culminating stasis for man for mankind, like where we're at. It's just that this is what money needs as a technology in its current use to like continue to propagate and to move forward to its finality. All of this shit that's going on, like COVID, for example, COVID is a human engineered thing. This is not a natural thing. It was purposefully jumped from the canine to the human. It had to be made that way. COVID-19 is not the last of these, viruses and probably diseases that are going to be coming this way. It's actually a pretty benign thing. The purpose of the COVID-19 is to set up and test, like a test run, like a dry run of societal and governmental integration globally. It is global, and it is working its way through the government networks in terms of their response command system, however it may be set up in every country. It is working its way all the way down, and they are working out all the kinks, double checking everything. That's what all this is about. But you should understand that COVID is not the last thing that's coming. You should understand that we're not going to get over COVID. You may get over the actual strain, the SARS-2 strain, but the control measures that are implemented in order to deal with it are going to stay forever, at least by intent, by design. They're going to stay, and there's going to be another one, and then another one, and I don't know how many there's going to be, but you're going to have some pretty significant viruses released on humanity. And when those get released, they're going to reinforce the control structure, the paradigm that's already been put in place. But what's put in place isn't enough, at least by design, like towards the end goal. And so the future viruses that are coming are going to be more extreme than COVID. So I just want you to understand this, because I think people are viewing the situation from their personal perspective, which is informed from deceit. And so they're not able to see clearly the situation. I've tried to explain this in videos, but I've done a poor job. A lot of the difficulty of explaining this stuff is the way that humans are designed in creation. And what I mean by that is that each individual person has an entirely individual perspective, which is a world. Their perspective is actually a sight of all the other worlds, and what goes on in your head is mutually exclusive to everyone else's. That doesn't mean that your perspective is wrong. It's actually correct, even when it's wrong. They are legitimate perspectives that have profound purpose in the interaction between each other as you meet and talk and share ideas with other people. So what you got to understand is that when I'm making these videos, people see exactly what they want to see, no matter what I say. I could go into specificity to a depth that is absurd. I could bring up documents. I could, cite pretty much anything, and it really wouldn't matter, because whoever's watching the video is going to have their perspective reinforced no matter what their perspective is. And this is a quality of what I'm talking about in terms of individual perspective. Where I've failed is in my techniques I've tried to employ to break through your shell and make you, help you to understand this and show you what you already see. But I failed because I'm experimenting with techniques and I haven't found what's totally effective yet. But I'm still trying. If you've ever heard me say this is a one-way train, or you can't be neutral on a moving train, this is what I'm referring to. I'm referring to what Marxist poli-sci's call Hegelian dialectic. What Hegelian dialectic really is the mechanical operation of moving society into the direction that's already dictated. Thesis, antithesis, synthesis. Rinse, repeat. But what you should understand about Hegelian dialectic, and what the Marxists fail to point out, is that the direction that the synthesis goes has already been selected before the dialectic begins. The process of the dialectic is just what's necessary physically and sociologically and economically for things to catch up. Now, there is a huge effort, and has been since people first started talking about electric boogaloo years ago, to converge the identity of the word boog with all the other things that society has been able to put into a little handbasket. Specifically, the idea of like racism, or supremacism, like racial supremacism, or anti-government insurgency, right? But what you should understand is that boog is just a word. It's just a four-letter word. It doesn't have any power nor association. And people have used it all over the internet for all kinds of reasons. And the boog is really a state of mind and a way of life. It's a realization that you're not in control, and you won't be. But you don't have to have your materialism controlled, and you don't have to be guided by it, and you don't have to be in a vulnerable position where it can be taken away. And when I say material, I mean in physicality, the things that you rely on to live. The current control paradigm is set up to make all of the things that you require to live, basically, in a basic sense, as distended and complex and diffused into the control paradigm as possible, so that it can't be easily separated. The reason this has been set up this way is to control you. Because what happens mentally, whether you acknowledge this or not, consciously, is that your brain is actually calculating every direction all at the same time as you exist in this world. And so even though you go through your daily motions of whatever it is that you do to live and to find a place in this world, the things that you choose to do to live are informed by your understanding of the structure of society. That understanding and perspective can be seen in a flavor that's totally benign. Like everything's just an accident and we're all just trying to get along the best we can. That perspective is the control paradigm. Because what's really going on is that you're buying your water. And the people that pump the water into the pipes were informed when that system was first set up to structure the entire thing as a non-redundant and centralized system. And so you pay for water. And the same thing's true for every other thing that you use, whether it be electricity that gets inefficiently used to heat your home so that you're not like having a frozen home with fucking frozen water pipes, up to the fuel that you put in your car, where all the fuel importation and extraction companies, like in the United States or outside of the United States, are completely guarded and monopolized, so that you can't even, you really can't even like harvest your own fuel in any kind of, at least in any kind of commercial sense. All the way, this same phenomenon exists all the way up to your food. And this is why you have FDA approval of drugs. This is why you have controlled logistics and regulatory control of packaging of your food, and certifications and labels and all of these things that have to happen, that all cost money, that somebody got paid for, that somebody's paying a fee for, in order for you to just get a piece of food to eat so that you can live for another day. All these things that I'm talking about are available to you without any kind of external dependence. The control paradigm seeks to push that reality, that catharsis and realization, as far away as possible, behind as many shiny objects and bright colors as is possible, so that you can't see it. And that's what all this is about. In fact, everything that you see that's fucked up with the world, including the influence of money and its effects, are all about this thing that I've just described. All the wars, all the events in history that we've misattributed to just the turn of the tides, to random chaos, all of these things are for the purpose of pushing away the realization that everything that you need to survive is already granted to you. And that's the reason that you're here. That's the reason that you've been created the way that you are created. Now, some people would scoff at what I'm saying because they would view it as religious. And that would be like a secular, scientific-minded person. But what I'm really saying has nothing to do with religion and has nothing to do with science. But if I were to try to convince you of what I'm saying in the perspective of a scientifically minded person, what I'm saying is that you've been selected and evolved based off of the pressures of the resources that are available to you. And that's how humanity has come to where it is right now. And so you don't require any of the control paradigm at all. But the only reason that it can exist and can function and continue is because you reinforce it. And you reinforce it on other people. And so what the Boog really is a global realization everywhere for all of humanity that tyranny is by our hand. Therefore, the only solution will come from your hand. And that is the real Boog. Nobody is going to come and hand it to you. You're going to have to do it yourself.